What's going on, people? So it's time for another 2 for 1. There's a couple of topics of interest I want to tackle, and I guess you could call this the PlayStation themed episode, since everything we're going to be talking about today is related to Sony. The first topic is related to overall compatibility with PS5 accessories, and then we're going to be rounding off the episode doing a discussion of Spider-Man being included in Marvel Avengers video game. So first things first. A few days back, Sony put out a blog post talking about PS5 compatibility as it pertains to your PS4 accessories. And judging by that list, it seems like the vast majority of your current accessories are going to be playable on PS5. So if you're a competitive fighting gamer, you went out there, you bought a stick, you modified it, rest assured you can bring that controller over to the PlayStation 5. The DualShock 4, the primary use of input on PS4, you can use that on PS5, but only for PS4 games. So if you're expecting to use the DualShock 4 to play PS5 games, as Drake and Josh's dad said, tough kumquats, you got to go ahead and use the DualSense. And this has prompted a lot of people to say things such as, oh, Sony is so anti-consumer, they're doing something that's just egregious and ridiculous. Do they not realize we're in a pandemic? They're just trying to sell off their new, shiny, fancy piece of hardware. Yeah. That's exactly what they're doing, guys. This is nothing new. This has been the status quo in the industry for the longest time. So when you're talking about controllers being forward, backwards compatible, things like that, I know a lot of people like to bring up things such as the original PS1. You can use those controllers on the PS2. And consoles such as the Wii and the Wii U. You can use your Wiimotes on the Wii U. Those, while they are true, they are exceptions, not the rule. The vast majority of consoles throughout history have not had backwards, forwards compatible controllers. They just haven't, because a lot of these companies have made crazy revisions to the technology where it's just a different form of input, different type of technology. So you can't really expect them to use the same controllers. It just doesn't work. Now, of course, things have changed here recently. Looking at Microsoft, for example, they've been very, very transparent since the later part of this generation about making sure you, the gamer, does not get left behind. So going forward into the new generation, you can use your Xbox One controllers on the Series X. You can use your Elite controllers on the Series X. And you can also use the Series X controllers on the OG Xbox One. Why do they allow those things? Nobody knows, but hey, that is something that is really great. It's a great consumer-friendly move. Sony, on the other hand, is not offering you that option. Sure, you can use your PS4 controller to play PS4 games, but you can't because they want you to use the DualSense. That's essentially what it is. They want you to use this controller, this technology, worry about this thing, worry about crafting games for this experience. And I understand where they're coming from a business side of things. When you look at things from a business perspective, guys, it makes sense. It's a new generation of consoles. They want a new generation of controllers. They have all these fancy features. They want to use that. Now, me, myself, and I don't sit in the boardroom, so I don't care about those type of decisions. Nowadays, for me, I just want a controller that works and is in tune to my particular play style. So, when you have a PC and you have different types of various inputs, you can use your 360 controller, the Xbox One controller, the PS4 controller. Heck, if you really wanted to, you can use things like the Wiimote and Nunchuck, the GameCube controller. You can use the Nintendo Switch Pro controller. When you find a controller that works best with you, by default, all of those controllers will sync to the Xbox play style config if you load up Steam, which is very cool because you can literally play with the controller that you want. So let's just say, for example, you have the PS5 controller, and if you don't really like it, too bad, so sad, you're stuck with it. Xbox and PC, on the other hand, you really don't have that issue. So I don't really think it's a case of Sony being anti-consumer. It's just them adhering to the status quo. So they're just a little less consumer friendly than Microsoft. Microsoft has just raised the bar. And let's just get it all on the table for a second. If the fact that the controller isn't backwards compatible, if that factor right there is going to stop you from going out there and buying a PS5, I don't think you were really interested in buying a PS5 in the first place, because whether we like it or not, we go to a platform for its games. The Nintendo Switch, for example, the Joy-Cons, in my personal opinion, are not a great form of input for long-form playing. I mean, it's cool if you want to just do a couple of short bursts here and there, and, when you split the Joy-Cons and you have fun with your friends, that's fine, but the controllers, they're literally like this. They're the size of Tic Tacs. The buttons are even smaller. So, thankfully, Nintendo offered the GameCube controller and the Pro controller as options. Now, does that make Nintendo More consumer friendly? Yes, it does. But is it going to be the be all end all? I'm not going to buy a Switch if they don't offer it. Well, obviously no, because there's a ton of people out there who don't own a Pro Controller and don't own a GameCube controller. They just play the Switch of the Joy-Cons. Why? I don't know. But at the end of the day, it does come down to games. And if the DualSense controller is a much better controller than the DualShock 4, if it has a much better battery life, build quality, things like that, then I'm all for it. Do I think it's really going to take advantage of all these crazy next-gen features? No, that's just marketing. We always hear these sort of things. Like when they came out with the Nintendo Wii, the PlayStation Move, the Kinect, how it's going to change the way you play games. Yeah, it did for about 2 years and then just stopped. When you look at the Switch Joy-Con HD Rumble, check how many ice cubes in there. That didn't do nothing. Let's be real about life for a second. And even the PlayStation 3, when they were hyping up the 6-axis, how 6-axis is going to change the game. It's going to be better than Rumble, so we're not going to include Rumble. And then look what happened. They ended up including Rumble. Like, these whole features that they add in the controllers, I mean, it's cool. But is it really going to change the way that you've been playing games for 20, 30 years? No. So at the end of the day, it's just a case of I don't agree with it, but I'm not going to lose sleep over it. Now, moving forward to the Spider-Man situation, right? So there have been a lot of rumors, especially in the past couple months as we've been gearing up towards the launch of the Marvel Avengers game. As y'all know, this is a game coming from Crystal Dynamics, published by SQUARE-NIX. And, I've had not so many charitable things to say about the game. Just looking at it, it just seems like it needs a lot more time in the oven. I like the idea of it in theory, but at the same time, just with the way a lot of these live service games go, how it's literally a case of, well, you gotta wait for it to get good, wait for the year one update, wait for this, that, and the third. It's not my cup of tea to go out there and spend $60 on those type of games, then buy all the expansions and then wait for them to get better. You know what I'm saying? But to each their own. So there were rumors floating around that, hey, this is a Marvel comic book video game. So could we potentially see other type of characters show up? Could we see this villain? Could we see that person come in as post-launch content? And yeah, a lot of people were throwing names around. We're saying that we need this hero, we need that hero. And of course, the big elephant in the room, what's happening with Spider-Man? Spider-Man is the most popular hero of all time. So is he going to be in this game? And we finally got an announcement from Crystal Dynamics. Yes, Spider-Man is going to show up in the Marvel Avengers game. 2 caveats, though. First things first, he's not going to be launching until early 2021. There's no confirmed specified date, so if I'm being honest, it could be anywhere from the first month to the 6th month of the year, the way things are progressing now. And the second is that he's going to be exclusive to the PlayStation platform. So both PS4 and PS5 are going to be the only place you can play Spidey on the Marvel Avengers game. And again, this has prompted a lot of people to say, oh, this is just so anti-consumer. Why would they do this? Blah, blah, blah. No one else is doing this. And again, same thing with the DualSense controller. It's just been the status quo for the longest time. This is how you do the business. I may not agree with it. I don't like it. And I'm just going to get out here and say it. I don't care about this Marvel Avengers game. I really don't. It just does not look that impressive to me. But I understand why they're doing this, to differentiate their platform. This is no different than what Xbox did last generation and in the beginning of this generation, with things like timed exclusive DLC content, timed exclusive releases for games. Nintendo has done the same thing as well. Whenever they have games come out on their platforms, they have special Nintendo skins that alter things about the games. All these companies do it. They do. It's just a par from the course to differentiate their product offering on their platform to the competition. However, I feel like that's just really scumbaggy that you're literally locking Spider-Man of all characters behind a platform. It's just like, okay, if you had, let's just say, you had Spider-Man in all the games, and let's say on the PS4, PS5 version, he had the suit from the new video game, the Insomniac video game. I can understand that because that's not going to fundamentally change the game. But to lock an entire hero, a playable character, there's not going to be that many playable characters in this game. That just doesn't sit right with me. It really doesn't. Part of me is thinking, okay, well, why don't you give Xbox exclusive characters? Why don't you give Xbox Punisher? Why don't you give Xbox Craig cosplaying as Thanos? Things like that. But apparently this exclusive content is going to be the only exclusive content they do, which means PlayStation has a vested interest in this game. They probably went so far as to secure funding and funnel that through Crystal Dynamics and SQUARE-NIX to get Spider-Man in this game. Honestly, it's just, to me personally, I don't care how the game could turn out or whatever. it makes me feel as if the Xbox and the PC versions are just inferior by default. Because if this character is never coming to those platforms, you're losing a good percentage of the game. Maybe Spider-Man could be that character that you love to play as. You don't like playing as any of these other heroes at all. But Spider-Man is the one that looks great and you have fun with it and you get exclusive missions and things like that. You know, like I don't mind when it's cosmetic. I don't mind when they do things like that. But when you're locking things such as story content or missions and things like that, like the whole Destiny situation. With Destiny on PlayStation, it had exclusive content that Xbox gamers, and when you got to the second one with the PC, they didn't get that content for years. Like I remember reading something like the first Destiny's exclusive content was what, almost 3 years timed exclusivity. And then it showed up on Xbox like a month or two before Destiny 2 launched. Like that just right there. By that point, it's like, yo, why do you even care about the game? So I just think when you're fundamentally altering the experience of the game, you know, and you're devaluing the product on other platforms, sure, you're propping one up, but at what cost? You know what I'm saying? Like you might as well have just made this game exclusive. So it's either fair across the board and everybody gets all these different characters, or it's just not. You know, I just feel like where do we draw the line? You know what I'm saying? Like where is it? Is it right here where it's cosmetic? Is it right here where it's a big character, so that's even more incentive? I don't know. That just will differ from person to person to person to person. But you know, let's just also be real about life for a second. You know, everyone's saying, "Oh, we're gonna boycott this game. We're gonna boycott this game." Y'all weren't going to boycott this game because y'all weren't even looking at this game in the first place. Let's be honest, man. Like me, myself, and I, the fact that I'm making another video about this game is very surprising, because I made one video and I was like, yeah, it doesn't look that great. We'll see what happens. And then I made another one. I'm like, yeah, this is still doesn't look like a great game. So I'm not really that interested in this game, but I can see where everyone else is coming from. You know, like we'll see what happens down the road. Maybe this game, it all ends up being for nothing. Maybe this game comes out, people don't like it, and then they just shut down the servers within 2 years. You know, anything is really possible with this sort of shtick. But yeah, that's all I really wanted to say as far as speaking my piece on the controller compatibility and the Spider-Man situation. You know, there's just a lot of things being thrown out there like, oh, this means that, you know, Sony is funding this because they own the rights to Spider-Man. They do not own the rights to Spider-Man. They own the film rights to Spider-Man. The rights itself are still owned by, you know, Disney and Marvel, which is why he can show up in Marvel vs. Capcom. He can show up in Ultimate Alliance, the mobile games, things like that. But yeah, man, we'll just see the fallout of this. What happens? I mean, judging by those Amazon pre-orders, it's the #1 selling game on PlayStation, and it's in the top 10 on Xbox. So I don't know about these boycotts. Y'all gamers, y'all got to do more. Y'all got to do more. If you're saying you boycott and then this happens every single time. But anyway, from me to you for now, my name is NGS signing out. Like always, I will catch you guys later. Peace.